question was what a producer does?
Correct.
Well,
Job description.
He just answered that question. Okay. He declares that he's a producer.
I declare so I am.
A record producer is the person that everything gets deferred to. When the band can't make a decision, the producer steps in. The producer is the bottom line guy. Everything that is a responsibility gets handed to the producer. The record should be delivered to the record label. It should be within budget. The I's should be dotted, the T's should be crossed, everybody should be happy. When the record becomes a hit, the artist is brilliant. When it's a flop, the producer didn't know what he was doing. So it's a no-win situation, but it really takes that overview of knowing how to control the situation and steer the ship so that you don't hit the iceberg.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, sir.
I think that a producer's job is to learn different languages. If you think about one bar of music, for example, you can't talk to a record company executive about that one bar of music.
You can hardly talk to some of the musicians about one bar of music.
Well, that's coming. But you can't talk to to an engineer about that one bar of music unless you understand how to communicate with him in some way, or to a singer, or to a musician, or to the person that pays your checks at the label. So you have to learn the language of making music, how to talk to each individual component. I think a producer is the hub. If you visualize a spokes of a wheel, the producer is the hub of that wheel, so that every single part of the record-making process has to be communicated to and through the producer. And I think that's really the skill of a producer, someone who can talk the talk.
Dino, do you have any comments?
Well, I do everything. So I mean, when I say everything, I mean I produce, I engineer, and I mix, and I wear a lot of hats. I also own the studio, so I do a whole lot of things. As far as the what they're saying, I agree to. I'm more. My comments will be more on the creative end, which means that I go through working with the players, working with the singer, making sure everything's on time, everything's in tune, creating the parts. Just the basic overall view of the music.
Sure.
That's what I do.
Yeah. Let's actually take it, Matt, I wanted to take it back to that second question. We got so involved in the job of a producer. What made you want to go out on your own from, working with these high-profile artists, working for Westlake? What made you want to start your own company?
Can I say the decision was not mine alone?
Sure.
Actually, at the time when I was confronted with the situation of what it was I wanted to do with the rest of my life, I was helped along the way by what was happening at the major labels and what some of the artists who were my clients, what was happening in their careers as well. And what I decided to do was I wanted to go from working in the big corporate world, and I wanted to get closer to the creative aspect of what it is. And what I decided to do was I decided to go on my own, declare myself that I was a recording consultant, if you will. I also say what I do is based on the coaching principle. I coach people through the creative process and technical. And for me, it's fulfilling. It's what I want to do. It's that thing that not so much I choose to do, but it's chosen me. I have to be in the creative process. It's the only way, it's the only thing that makes sense to me. And it's in my heart, it's in my soul, it's in my mind, it's what drives me. And when you have a passion for what you do, that's the fuel that'll move you forward.
Can I say something that I agree with Matt also about that? That to me, when there's a lot of things that go on, that's a headache. There's a lot of business problems. There's a lot of band problems. There's a lot of things you've got to put up with. But when the music starts, when the music is on, that's when everything, all those problems goes away. And to me, that's when everything's have a good time, have fun. Yeah. Sure. When the music is happening, everything goes away.
Okay, well, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about being a producer. We got the producers down here. And just kind of take it to the next level and ask Jeff a question in particular. I know you've worked with a lot of high-profile artists yourselves. I mean, with all your clients, I guess my question is, have you noticed any change of the producer between how it was 5 years ago, how it is today? How is the pressure from the top? For instance, let me give you a scenario. I have a real good friend who just won Star Search, and they put him in the studio. They had a pretty well-known producer. He's an artist himself, but he didn't get to fulfill any of his artistic capabilities. They shoved this bubblegum stuff down his throat, made him put out an album and call it X Star Search album. Now, as a producer, do you feel this kind of pressure? And secondly, my question, I guess, was, how has the role of the producer changed?
I don't feel any pressure from anybody. My attitude is that I never, ever go to the record business. I make the record business come to us. I want my artists to succeed or fail based on their own musical integrity, knowing that there's an equal chance of their failing, but at least they'll be able to make their own personal musical statement. We all know that hits are purchased. We all know what the business is all about. So for my clients, it's best that they do music that they'll be proud of doing and will be able to follow up doing 5 years from now. If they do something that caters to what the current fad of the moment is, first of all, it won't be them. Second of all, tonight it'll be out of date. So their career will be gone. So best they perform the music of their soul.
All right.
That's what will last as far as they're concerned.
Dino, did you want? Go ahead, Bobby. Dino, did you want to comment on that, or I mean, is it the same experience you've had?
Well, again, I totally agree. It's a fleeting business. I mean, 1 minute you're here, the next minute you're not. They were talking about artists that were the development of artists. They don't develop artists anymore. If you're selling records, you're there. If you're not, you're gone. There's a lot of bands that you've heard about. You've heard their music. You know who they are, and all of a sudden it's like, where are they?
There's a great phrase in our business that I wish I could take credit for. It's instant gratification takes too long. That's the status of the record companies as we know it.
I guess what he's saying is that when it's your time, you got to make the most of it and get it out there. I mean, you can always make money off your live performances, and you can make money for the rest of your life on one hit. You can have one hit and make money for the rest of your life. But as far as the recording and being on top, every step that you make in the studio is very important, and you just got to get the best you can while you're doing it.
I agree with the philosophy of obviously the artist making the record they want to make, but I also think a producer's role is to bridge two things: is to make that record the artist is proud of, but also an album that the record company can sell. I've seen records delivered that have no radio potential, and then the manager's complaining to the label that they don't get played on the radio. So I think there's some responsibility with a certain budget that the artist is definitely making the record they want to make. But you've got to give the tools to the label if your expectations are to sell more than 5,000-10,000 units. So there's an obligation there to be the middleman to try and bridge the gap where, the music integrity is kept, but also there's some ability to sell it. I think it's really important. Otherwise, it'd just be another,
I agree. I do think that a producer's role is to walk that barbed wire fence between art and commerce. I really do think that if the expectation, as you say, is for sales of epic proportions, then you do have to at least pay attention to that side of the business. Otherwise, it's basically an ego stroke.
It's important for the artist to choose the type of producer they want to work with. I mean, there's many different styles of producers. Some people want to do everything in Pro Tools, chop it up, build it, which is an art form within itself. It's not how I make records. It's not to say it's wrong or right.
Thank you.
But a lot of bands, they spend a lot of money making records, and they've got to feel comfortable with who they're working with and the right approach, and the selection process is very important. So I don't think any artist should be shoved in with a producer they're not comfortable with. Labels don't really do that. It's got to be a two-way thing.
Talk about the fine line that you always walk. You have to. You're in the studio